How will avatars work in the land of Mirandus? Today, we explore what we've learned. We're going to be taking a look at avatar customization to make them unique, avatar conditions to help you monitor their vitals, and avatar attachment points for your weapons, armor, and equipment. And we're going to be covering a whole lot more that you didn't even know that you wanted to know about the avatars of Mirandus. Let's dig in. Welcome to Mirandus Live. I'm Jesse, and today we're talking about all that we've learned about avatars from past AMAs. Now, if you're new to this channel right here is all about Mirandus. It's not watered down with info about other games or random news about blockchain gaming. This is 100% pure high-grade, unadulterated, unhomogenized Mirandus. So if that's what you're into and this is your thing, you're going to want to be sure to subscribe and jab that notification bell so that you don't miss what we share next. All right, with that out of the way, let's dive right in and take a look at a clip that shares what we've learned about customizing your avatar.
When you get your avatar, we want you to always be able to customize certain stuff. You know, your skin color, your eye color, and kind of the form of your body. You guys should be able to change at will, to create variations or to create something that you identify with. But then we also like the idea that there's kind of unique and scarce enhancements that you guys could get game items that would allow you to look fundamentally different than everybody else beyond just skin color and eye color and stuff. I mean, how fun would it be if there was only 20 or 30 super cool long wizard beards in the world or something? And so when you see someone who looked incredibly unique, I think that should be really neat when you're in town and walking around. So we like that idea as well. You know, those would all be stuff that you guys could get and put on your character and, you know that they're kind of scarce out there in the world and make even more special. So we think that's kind of a fun idea.
Now, I love the idea of customization, which is common with most MMORPGs, where in the very beginning, you can customize your avatar, look and feel, and skin color, eye color, height, body form, all that sort of thing. But I think it's a little weird to be able to just change that stuff at random. Be like, hey dude, weren't you green yesterday and about 2 feet taller? That just seems a little strange. You would think that we would want to be held to some form factor for the other people that interact within the game. Say, for instance, that have come to recognize you a certain height, a certain body shape, you know, if you're an orc, you've got some teeth. What if your teeth are just gone the next day and then back the next? You know, hot swapping noses just seems like a really strange thing to have within a game. Now, that is just my 2 cents. In fact, I'd love to have a conversation about this. So leave a comment below and tell me what you think about being able to change your height and your skin color and swap out facial parts and facial features. I think it's a little strange, but you tell me what you think. Now, with that said, I do love the idea of having all of these interesting ways to make your character unique. And I think it's great that if you happen to get this NFT that gives you this really awesome wizard's beard and there's only 1 or 2 or maybe just a real scarce number throughout the land of Mirandus and you have one. I love the idea that you're going to run into people that have a look that you won't see on any other avatar. That to me is really cool. But speaking of that, if these facial enhancements are going to be NFTs, how will they work? Will they have requirements? For example, let's say that you have an NFT that is really big teeth. Is that going to have a racial requirement? For example, can you only put these teeth on an orc? Or can you put, you know, big old huge orc-looking teeth on a human or a halfling? That'd be a little weird. So I'm assuming that in addition to having this NFT, there might be some additional requirements for being able to equip it. Now, up next we have avatar conditions. This was perhaps the biggest reveal about the gameplay experience because it's all about the vitals and how you can monitor those vitals for your character. Let's take a look.
We've also tried to put a stake in the ground here on what we're calling the condition or the health of the character. These are the 3 things that'll kind of be persistent in your HUD. And one is your hit points. And that's just classic. I think everyone understands that. You know, you don't want it to go to 0. The next is vitality. And I think this one's pretty interesting, but this is how we feed into the taverns and the inns. And you want to keep the vitality of your character high. If you're eating really great things and you're sleeping, your vitality will be high. And with your vitality high, your hit points will recover faster, your energy will recover faster. Energy, we're going to work really hard to try to make energy a universal principle in the game. I think all games kind of do this. They just skin it a little different. Energy is really you exerting force into the world. You know, if I'm a blacksmith and I'm working on something, I'm spending energy. If I'm, swinging a sword around, I'm spending energy. If I'm making a pie, I'm spending energy, right? Casting a spell, this could be mana. So if we tune it right, it'd be really cool and interesting, and also simple for people who aren't used to playing very complex RPGs to come in the game and understand that constant. So there's your health, there's how fast your health and energy are recovering, which is your vitality, and your energy, which is how you exert force into the world to accomplish actions. Energy is a nice thing too. It's like if you're lower level, you could have, a tiny bit of energy and you could swing around basic stuff. If you want to do a super cool triple backflip axe attack, that you might need to be very high level for that. And a move like that might require a lot of energy. If we can keep these three things kind of universally there living in the HUD, and I think that'll be really, really great.
McCarthy seems to want to keep this somewhat simplified and is providing you with information on three primary conditions: hit points, vitality, and energy. Let's take a look at each. Now, I have a few questions about the hit point system, such as how will recovery work? How much of a role will vitality play on your hit point recovery? Will you literally see when you're just standing there, your hit points slowly recovering? What will be the impact of some form of intervention like potions, someone casting a healing spell on you, or perhaps you reach into your bag and pull out some dried meat and chew on that? Is that going to speed up the process? Will sitting down actually be a form of rest that also speeds up your hit point and health recovery? These are all questions that eventually we'll have some answers to. So vitality, it's an interesting metric. Vitality here is going to play a huge role in your ability to recover your health and hit points, as well as your ability to recover your energy levels, which is going to give you endurance for long battles or even for running. So the question becomes is how long can you go without the things that you need that fuel your vitality? Now, the quality of food and the quality of rest that you get is obviously going to play a role, which is why from the rest perspective, you have everything from the tent all the way up to the Majestic Inn. And from a food perspective, you've got all the different ways you can probably carry food on your person, but then you can also go to taverns all the way up to a grand tavern. So I'm sure that there's also going to be food that gives boosts to your vitality. There might be some type of food where you can eat it and your vitality is good for a couple days, or you can even go without sleep for a day. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a big difference in nourishment quality that affects your vitality if you just pull some dried meat out of your pack versus finding your way to a grand tavern where you have some piping hot stew and a tankard of finely brewed ale, and enjoy some games and music and dancing. That experience is probably going to be more nourishing to your body, of course, than pulling out some dried meat. Now, energy. Energy is a single form of measure in the land of Mirandus for how you exert yourself. And I find it a little odd that we're packing it all into this one form of measure. And the reason that I find it odd is that kind of leans in the direction of arcade rather than RPG. So to be able to package that all into one just seems a little strange, because for me, I think there's a different draw on energy for you. The difference between casting a spell or healing someone versus swinging a large battle axe. And so it's hard for me to imagine that you might have a caster who has built up, a frail wizard who has built up his energy by practicing magic over a period of time, but then all of a sudden, should he be able to pick up a massive battle axe? I wouldn't think he would have the requirements for that. Now, perhaps the way that will work is the battle axe, in order to equip it, you will have to have the attributes, a high strength perhaps, something like that. So maybe there'll be other requirements, but still, having energy as a single form of measure, that single dial there that encompasses everything you do from crafting to casting spells, that to me is a little strange. So I really am curious to see how McCarthy plans to implement this into the world rather than having separate, actually having a mana pool. I'm gonna miss a mana pool. I think mana is amazing. So I'm curious to see how that part is going to play out. Now, speaking of stats, what do we know beyond these conditions? Will there be traditional stats like we find in traditional role-playing games? For example, strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and perhaps even charisma. Now, will these underlying stats exist in the game? Most likely, yes. In fact, within the same AMA, we've heard McCarthy reference stats and abilities. And so I'm assuming that those stats will be where we find those attributes. Because as mentioned, I'm assuming that things that you will equip will have some requirements. Some of those requirements may be race related. Many of those requirements will probably be stat related. Many of them will be ability related. Some of them will probably be skill related. And so there's a lot of different things that can be weaved into game mechanics that determine whether or not you can equip this ring or utilize this piece of armor or swing a particular sword or use a bow. So that part is going to be interesting. All right, so now let's take a look at avatar attachment points.
One of the things that we've really had to dig into, guys, and you know, making an avatar is very difficult and time consuming, but is kind of the foundation of the game. You know, it's who you are when you project yourself into this world of Mirandus. We want that to feel really physical. We're really hoping that almost everything in your inventory can be seen on you just as it would if you were walking around a medieval world. Your hair, your beards, your pants, your boots, every type of glove. You'll want to get a great belt. You'll want to upgrade your belt. And if you get 3 pouches that attach to your belt, you know, you'll be seeing those pouches on there, your items, the weapons you're carrying, you know, even the jewelry. You know, this guy's got 10 rings on his fingers. You know, if you put 3 rings on your fingers, I think you should be able to see 3 rings standing when you're standing there and you're hanging out in the tavern. I think it's just very cool and feels very physical. You know, a lot of games you'll get some of that, but usually it'll be like you'll choose an armor type and that might, you know, fill most of your body up. But we kind of like the idea that everything that you've defined about your character could be visual. And again, just kind of thinking through what it would be like to be in that medieval tavern and have somebody walk in and be able to observe something about them simply by what they're wearing or the gear they're carrying. And so I think that's kind of fun. And it's a lot of technical work. And, you know, Craig and the guys have been doing a great job of finding how this can work in game and naming conventions. And it's a good bit of doing, but we're getting really close. And that's kind of cool and exciting.
Now, your avatar is absolutely going to be a focal point for your identity within the land of Mirandus. And it's clear that McCarthy wants this to be a very physical and visual experience, to be able to tell a lot about a person by observing their avatar. But as I mentioned earlier, if this game is to be first-person perspective, you're not going to be seeing those things yourself. Maybe your rings and your gloves. Speaking of rings and gloves, have you noticed that the rings are on the outside of the gloves? That's a bit peculiar. But again, it's to be able to visually observe these things. Another thing that's an interesting observation about this, something tells me that those rings that you see, and we haven't really heard the word enchanting from anyone on the dev team, but I continue to use this because I believe that's what the goldsmith, is it goldsmith? Goldsmith avatar, as well as the jewelers, I think that's what they're going to be doing because, again, if you look at this with the dialed down graphics, it's not like anyone's going to be forking out a whole lot of money or spending a lot of time crafting jewelry just for a couple of pixels. I would go as far as to say that it's most likely going to be due to the buffs that these things will give. In fact, you can see with the jeweler here, 5 rings on each hand and a necklace there. So jewelry is going to play a big role in the land of Mirandus. One of the obvious clues from looking at this avatar paper doll here. Now, if we look at the completely stripped down avatar, we can see here that this guy has just got on some tighty-whities or perhaps a Speedo, and he doesn't even have a face. And the reason that I think that's interesting to be shown here is because all of those things on the face are attachment points, which I think is fantastic. And so within the game, as it's already been mentioned, you will be able to have perhaps rare NFTs for a very special nose or a beard or ears or eyes or teeth or something like that, or an unusual hairdo. From there, we have pants, boots, gloves, and a belt. And I do like that McCarthy mentions that the belt will have significant utility, and you may even have reason to want to upgrade your belt. A brand new belt might not have room for anything on it, as where you might be able to add 3 or even 5 pouches or place to hold daggers on your belt when you upgrade that piece. Then there's a shirt, chest, and shoulders. Now what we don't know, since they are added all at once, is all of these a single item, or are they 3 separate attachment points? I'm hoping 3 separate attachment points. And obviously there'll be a place for your weapons. How many is unknown. Will you have a primary weapon and then a secondary slot for a shield? Or will that be the same place that you might put a bow? If you have a shield and a bow and a sword, can you actually equip all 3, and will you see those on your avatar? In the shop provided, we see 3 weapons. We see a dagger on each hip, so again attached to the belt, and we also see a sword on the back. So in this particular instance, we see 3. Can you equip more? What would be kind of cool is if you actually had a boot slot, or maybe that's a special NFT boot where you can actually hold a dagger in that boot as well. And maybe again, maybe that's profession specific. Okay, now we're going to take a look at how avatars will function like a wallet. They're not a wallet, but they will have wallet-like functionality as a container for things that are related to your avatar.
The next thing that we're digging into, guys, I think this is a really big one. We really need to understand what it means to have an avatar on the chain. We want to make the commitment to you guys that these are your avatars, just like everything in our decentralized network. You know, when you have something on our network, it is yours and you should be able to do what you please with it. We're kind of thinking that the avatars need to act a bit like a wallet. And they're not a wallet in and of themselves. And the engineers have scolded me for even saying wallet. But it's really a container burned into this NFT. Your particular avatar are things like race and level and hit points and stats and abilities. But there's so much other stuff that's going to happen in the game, right? Like swords need to be on chain. You know, a meal could be on chain. Armor could be on chain. And those all need to be a part of your character too, such that you could take that character in a package and say, here is my avatar, and give it to your friend if you wanted to. That's kind of your business. So there's kind of this concept of things that are burned into the character that'll likely be held DB side, like your race, level, and hit points. But everything that you have attached to them will be on chain, and those will be your visual enhancements, like your scars and things that we talked about earlier. And again, crafts, materials, weapons. I think the maps as you move through the world, you know, if you've got a cartography skill or purchased maps from other players or traded with players to get cool maps, and those would be attached to your character as well. And they're attached to your character, they're on chain, but they need to be able to be subtracted from your character as well. It's a sword, it's on chain, it's attached to your character, but let's say you want to give it to somebody else, well, that token needs to be transferred to somebody else, right? There's this part of your character that is, we're calling engraved, and then there's this part of your character that is things that are attached to them that'll all live on chain. Kind of a big part of the game that we're really excited about. These will be things that will be attached to your character called skills. So you'll have your core stats and abilities. Skills are really blueprints. You know, they're really all the way from how do you make a pie, like a recipe, to how do you craft a chair, and even skills like a lost kung fu scroll that allows you to perform a special move.
The important takeaway from this is that there are 2 aspects to your avatar. There are the things that are engraved, into your avatar, and then there are the things that are attached to it on chain. And the things that are attached can be removed, they can be taken off, they can be sold, they can be given away, they can be traded. Now, another interesting thing is that McCarthy talks about even meals being on chain. Can you imagine that soon will come a day that on the secondary market, there will be tens of thousands of dollars being traded in virtual food? These things over here that are engraved are not in your wallet. These engraved things exist on Mirandus servers. Those are things that the developers have control over. Let's say, for example, we don't yet know how death works, but when you die, those things that are engraved can be changed and altered by the development team. For example, you could lose levels, you could lose abilities, you could lose stats, you could even, not necessarily, you wouldn't be able to lose skills, because skills fall into that attached NFT. But the abilities you absolutely could, levels you absolutely could, and stats. Anything that's engraved within your avatar is something that could be altered on the server side. A few closing thoughts here. With the year 2021 half over now, that leaves 6 months for the devs to put something together that's going to be an alpha release before the end of the year. Can they still do it? Is that a possibility? Now, hopefully they've been very hard at work, and that's the reason for the lack of information that we've received over the past nearly 2 months now. So let's just all hope that there is a big development reveal on the horizon. In the next video, we're gonna dive right into the Chronicus. And man, there are some juicy clues in there that no one's talking about. I would go as far as to say out of all of the information that has been revealed in past AMAs, there's a single screenshot that reveals more intel about the world of Mirandus than anything else that we've seen. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the next video. Be sure to subscribe and jab that notification bell so that you don't miss it. And with that, and until the next video, Jesse out.